everyone, this is Mario again, coming at you with another movie review. Today I'm reviewing the sequel to the movie that I reviewed last time, which was Alien. That's right, it is the 1986 sequel to Alien, which is considered by many to also be a classic, and it is arguably one of the best sequels ever made, I should say. What I mean by arguably is that it's one of the ones that you could say is actually the best sequel ever made. You know, it's up there with Empire Strikes Back, Terminator 2, Predator 2. It's up there with all. Hold it up there in high regard because I haven't actually done an official list of my top favorite sequels, but it'd be an interesting list actually to compose. And of course, you know, got the quadrilogy set again. See if I could find. Let's see. Here are the pictures for Alien. That's Alien. Yeah, here's the picture for Aliens. And then there's the generic Alien right there. And another Alien right there. Of course, like with Alien, this has both the quadrilogy set has both versions of the movie, the theatrical cut, which I will admit, ever since I've watched the special edition cut, I never watched the theatrical cut anymore. I consider the special edition to be a better cut with Aliens, and that's one of the two instances on this quadrilogy, and the other one is Alien 3, which I will address that when I get to that review next. But it also, like the first film, has the production, pre-production, and post-production featurettes on the second disc, which is very interesting to watch, because it talks about all of it. Like, for example, James Cameron was one of the ones who originally had the idea to do a sequel to Alien, because he was a big fan of the movie. And note, this was before he did the Terminator that he originally had this idea. I think it was in the pre-production stages of the Terminator. He went to Walter Hill and talked about it, and they talked about it back and forth, and Fox had changes in management, so they were like, yeah, we'll do it. No, we won't do it. Yeah, we'll do it. So as this was going on, James was coming up with ideas, and because Arnold had to shoot the Conan sequel, production on Terminator was postponed, so during that, Cameron took up a writing project or two. I believe during the same time he also wrote a little bit. Oh yeah, this is way after that. Excuse me, I was going to mention Rambo 2, but this is way after that, I think. Because I'm double checking because I forget what year Rambo 2 was. Actually, real quick, I think Rambo 2 was around this time period. I think it might have been. Yeah, it was around this time period. I think it was, yeah, it was in the same time period. Yeah, I was right. He also did one of the original drafts of Rambo 2, and he also started his script for Aliens. He only did like 40-something pages, and Fox loved it, and they said, hey, if Terminator's a hit, we'll let you direct the film as well. And of course, well, we all know Terminator was a hit, so James got to direct the movie. And this, out of the movies of Jimmy's that I've seen, this is probably my favorite movie, because off the top of my head, the ones of his I've seen, of course, I didn't sit all the way through Titanic, which I got to do that one day. Avatar, as we mentioned, of course, Aliens, both Terminator movies, which I haven't seen the first one in a while, so this is just from what I remember of the film. Of course, Terminator 2. I haven't seen True Lies yet, so yeah, this is probably my favorite of his movies. And like I said in the last review, Alien and Aliens, when I compare them, it's hard for me to pick one of them over the other. They're different films in certain regards, but they're that good. Anyway, back to the thing. The production of this movie was very troubling because some of the crew did not like James. They're like, hey, who's this guy think he can make a sequel to a Ridley Scott movie? And I know at one point during production he clashed with a lighting guy who wouldn't light a scene involving the nest the way that James wanted, and he fired him, and some of the crew threatened to walk off. Then of course the thing with the tea lady that they mention in great length on the DVD. If anything, the people that he got along with the best were probably the actors, especially the ones that he used in previous films, you know, Michael Biehn, Lance Henriksen, among others. Hey man, he even clashed with James Horner near the end of production because they feel he had enough time to do the score, which, despite that, James still got an Oscar nomination for Best Original Score. And if I'm thinking about it, I do not think Aliens actually got an Oscar nomination for director. Hold on, I'm checking. Yeah, it didn't. That's actually kind of That kind of sucks if you think about it. With all the work James put into the movie, he didn't even get a nod. I mean, the only Academy Awards the movie ended up winning were sound editing, rightfully so, and visual effects, rightfully so. But it also got nominated for sound, like I said, score, editing, art direction, and of course, which is something I will address a little bit more later in detail, actress in a leading role for Sigourney Weaver. But this is a movie I feel that James should have at least gotten nominated for. Oh, this over Avatar, I will say that, because even though he probably put equal work into it, this is the superior film, so at least in my opinion it is. Anyway, like I mentioned before, the production kind of there was a lot of clashing with James and some of the people on the set, but as you can see, it eventually worked. And of course, our cast is Sigourney Weaver reprising her role as Sigourney Weaver reprising her role as Ellen Ripley. Then of course we got Michael Biehn as Corporal Dwayne Hicks. We got Jeanette Goldstein as Private Vasquez. We got Carrie Henn, yes, I'm reading this list off Wikipedia, as Newt, a kid from the colony on LV-426. You got Lance Henriksen, beautifully playing Bishop, the android of the Sulaco. We got William Hope as Lieutenant Gorman. Al Matthews as Sergeant Alpone. Bill Paxton as Private Hudson, who of course has one of the most quotable lines from this movie. Game over, man, game over. Paul Reiser as Carter Burke, among others. Those are just all the ones of note. And of course the plot is that it's years after the first movie. A salvage team finds the Narcissus, which is the name of the little space freighter that the Nostromo had. They find Ellen Ripley in it, and we find out it's been 57 years since the first movie, and she just basically has been floating out through space, not running into anyone until now. And of course, you can tell she doesn't take this news well at first, and even more so in the special edition when she finds out about her daughter, which I'm not going to spoil that. But anyway, once she is well enough, she has a meeting with her employer, the Weyland-Yutani Copulation. It's a good thing I didn't accidentally say copulation, but anyway, corporation. And her testimony regarding the alien is met with skepticism because there's no physical evidence in the craft. Because of this, she's squipped. Dang. Why is it with these reviews I'm on? This is the second review in a row for this series and I'm messing up. Yeah, it was good. Yeah, it was good, the review we saw him do. He squipped. Yeah, he was squipped of it. She is stripped of her rank and she's basically fired from being a warrant officer. And after her testimony, they find out that the corporation has lost contact with LV-426 because apparently in between movies the Weyland-Yutani Corporation set up a terraforming colony on the planet and is basically turning it into a planet like Earth. Well, Ripley eventually does agree to go with Carter Burke and a group of Marines led by Lieutenant Gorman to go and check it out. And of course there they find the colony in a wreck and they discover the aliens, and from there they gotta try to survive and get off the planet. Now of course, like the first movie, there's beautiful acting all around. The entire group of Marines, you really believe that not only are they Marines, but they have a lot of camaraderie and that they've been through combat together. And that's partially due to Cameron insisting that Al Matthews, Alpone, who is a former military man, drill them, get them into the military thing. And I could tell you, me having been in JROTC, I know about drilling, and I can tell you, you can really sense that did work. And you can really sense the teamwork in them. It's a similar thing, not as extreme of course in a high school setting, but you can sense it. The only one who didn't really have to do that was Michael Biehn, and that's only because he was actually a replacement for James Remar, who left the film because of artistic differences with Cameron, which I don't remember if they mentioned what those differences were on the DVD. I would really like to know. What did he want? Did he want his character to die or something? I don't know. But you really get the sense of it, and you get the sense that at first they have trouble opening to the outsider people like Burke, who's a company man, Ripley, who seems to be keeping to herself, and especially Gorman, the lieutenant. And as we find out, he's kind of a green lieutenant, which that I can also tell you is kind of true, because the military people, especially the sergeants, they don't really take too kindly to lieutenants who think too highly of themselves, who act like they got a stick up there, you know what. And I know that personally from a story that from like a, well, it wasn't really a specific story, it was more like a conglomeration of stuff that my sergeant in ROTC told us, how sometimes he would have to have a talk with certain lieutenants, you know, that when they first came in because they were green. And of course and I think Peter Boyle kind of put it the best in another way of how they did it. Yeah, we had trouble with lieutenants. You know, we took care of that. Friendly fire. And let me tell you, it wasn't so friendly. I forget actually what episode of Everybody Loves Raymond that's from, but I always remember that line because it is true. And of course, that's put through with not only how they look when they're act when they're around Gorman sometimes, but also dialogue. We're coming in. He's coming in. I feel safer already. Stuff like that. You can sense that the only one that really respects Gorman at all, even though he probably only does it a little bit, and maybe just because he's an officer, might be Al Pone. The rest of them only like do the respect that they have to give him because he's an officer. Don't really show like they actually believe it. Especially Vasquez, and I'm not going to say why, but if you've seen the movie, you know what I mean. But of course, he develops as a character as the movie goes along. He goes from being the stuck-up Marine lieutenant to being, you know, kind of a hero like the rest of them. Which, of course, he grows with this. Ripley, you could tell, her character's a little paranoid, but you kind of expect it. I mean, look what she went through in the first movie, and of course, the whole thing with the company that we find out in the first movie, and then as we find out later about Burke, I'm not going to say anything, it's kind of warranted. Especially, and also considering that the aliens were there too. It's a little bit warranted, but now, since she actually knows about the creatures, she's not going to take any crap anymore. So her transformation at the beginning from paranoid person to kind of maybe a little bit scared because she's reliving stuff, to a hardened person who is mad as hell, not going to take it anymore. It's very believable the way that the film is crafted, and the way the movie ends with Ripley going in there with the flamethrower and the machine gun, it works. I'm not going to say anything specifically about it because I don't really want to give away the ending for the people that haven't seen the movie. But the way that James crafted it, it works. And that's the reason why I say I really miss James actually making movies the way he did. Because with Avatar, it just didn't grab me in the same way. Which if you want to, I already did a review of that movie, so go back to that movie if you want to hear my thoughts on that movie. And it's kind of hard to specifically point out any one of the performances by the Marines, because they all basically are all conglomerated together and fit, and they go off each other so well. Like I said, shows the camaraderie between them, and it fits. But ones that stand out are of course Al Matthews, because for him technically it's not acting because he was a military guy. You know, just like Gunny, military guy, so he doesn't really have to act that much because that's how he acted. And then of course, if I have to pick out any, it'd probably be Michael Biehn, because you know he still has some of that military thing, but you do kind of get the hint that maybe he was a recent transfer. Maybe that's because he didn't go through the thing, and that's what it is. They don't really state anything, but he is third in the chain of command behind Gorman and Al Pone, so maybe he was transferred from another outfit for some reason. It's up to your interpretation. The only other ones that stand out are like Vasquez, the tomboy of the group who is so badass, and of course she goes out in a blaze of glory. And then of course Hudson, you know, game over. And then of course his final scene in the movie is also pretty good. The alien design in this movie, it's the same. It's similar to the original design, but improves on it. And I have to say, I actually like the design of the aliens in this movie a little bit better, a little bit more like their camouflage. But I would really like an actual explanation in a film as to why they would change design from like the dome thing to like the thing. Does the dome like fall off at one point during it? Never explains, because in AVPR we have that design of aliens again. Never really explains. Of course, Lance Henriksen as Bishop, I can't forget to mention him. He does a magnificent job as Bishop. You suspect him at times, but then by the end of the movie you see he is actually likable, and he does really follow the new code of the androids very well. And like I said, all the Oscar nominations it got, it deserved. It deserved it for visual effects. It deserved all the one for score. I wish James had gotten a nomination at least for direction. My rating for this movie is a 5 out of 5. If you haven't seen this movie, where have you been?